What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's video. In the last video, we got a lot done actually. We got the whole front suspension in, coilovers, angle kit, all that stuff done. And then we got to put these Model 6 ABS wheels on. I think it looks pretty sick. Pretty happy with the outcome. I was hoping that I would have gotten the rear flex lines for the handbrake and stuff so we could get that all set up and bled and make sure everything's working and like route the lines properly and all that stuff, but they didn't come. So they're gonna be here next week. So we're gonna do something else. I think what I'm gonna do today is actually get back into the rocker panel on the other side. When I did the subframe and that, I had the jack stands basically so I couldn't really finish the rocker panel. And that's why I had to put the subframe in, get the wheels on, whatever, and then I just kept going to the front to that suspension. But now I can jack it up, put the jack stands under the subframe so they're out of the way, and I can actually go ahead and make a panel and weld it in and do all that stuff for the rocker panel. So I think what my plan is now is basically move all this junk out of the way, probably over to the other side, get the car up nice and high, and then, yeah, just start messing around with this, making a panel. We're gonna basically bend up the rocker panel and weld it in there. We'll have to do some other pieces as well, like for an inner and whatever goes underneath up to that part. So that it's gonna be a little, you know, involved, but this part is like crucial to the structure. You know, people say like, oh, it's fine, like it's just drift car, the rockers are gone. Well, it's not exactly how it works because the rockers are like an extremely important part of the structure of the vehicle. There's so many different layers. And it's what holds the whole car together. There's no frame, it's a unibody. So you need the rocker panels to be like half decent. So hopefully we can get something figured out for back there, make it look like it kind of never happened. Plus it's gonna be covered with side skirts, like the stock ones cover all of that, or, you know, a body kit, you know, ideally down the road. So I'm kind of on a little bit of a deadline now because I've been invited to a drift day practice thing. Somebody rented out a local, I wouldn't call it local, it's a really far away track, and I've been invited to that, which is really cool. I gotta get the car like ready. It's April, I think 29th. So I mean, we got some time. We basically got like 2 months, which is a lot of time. So I really wanna get everything done that needs to be done just to get it like running and driving and working. And then we'll see, you know, what else is happening, what time frame I get this part done in. And then I really wanna paint the car. I really do. I don't like the fact that it's 12 different colors, and I understand like it's a drift car, it doesn't matter. But I like things to look nice, and this really bugs me. So I would love to paint it before I actually do like anything crazy with it, which is like total opposite of what you should do. This should be fine. It's just a beater car, but I wanna change it. I wanna make it look like something other than just like a stock BMW that's lowered a little bit. Even though, honestly, I'm pretty happy with how it looks, but I would just like to be a little more happy with how it looks. So yeah, we're gonna get into doing that rocker panel on the other side and get all that junk over here. Car, jack up, we'll just get to it. A couple videos ago I showed this. This is the new basically inner like rocker, I guess you would call it, and then the floor pan sits there. That's all new, and this is all like 18 gauge steel. Like it's way too thick, didn't need to be that thick. It's way thicker than the rest of the floor, and that's exactly what I'm gonna be using on the outer rocker. This is like an inner rocker type structure thing that basically goes from up here, and then it just reinforces basically the sill to the bottom of the rocker. You can see it's spot welded all along down there, and it just ties it all together. I'm not going to be redoing that piece just because I really don't have any way to make these basically steps in it. I could technically just put like a straight piece in and just weld it where I can, or kind of like bend it to there, but it's really no different for what I'm trying to do. I just want to make this hole not be a hole and put something there because I'm gonna really need something to mount a side skirt to eventually. I think what I'm gonna do is start with making the whole outer shell, and then we're gonna have to come back in here and put a new inner part, and there's gonna have to be something in here because this is much higher than where the floor part is, and that is like factory. I just cut out what was there, put it in the exact same piece, so that's where it should be. So this rocker is gonna come like this, all the way out to here basically, and then up. It's also gonna get cut on an angle back here. So I'm gonna have to basically make a whole shell, put it up there, and then I can go back and mark it. And then we'll have to figure out kind of what piece we need to add to here, because I know it's definitely missing something. I'm just not exactly sure what yet. So we'll figure that out once we get there. But first I'm gonna just take some measurements, basically measure from this edge, because I'm gonna actually try and like butt weld it, measure from there to here. Then we'll measure also from this edge here all the way down to where it's gonna be plug welded onto the floor. I'm not exactly sure how much of this I'll be able to replicate because it's got like this indent. I'm definitely not gonna be able to do that. This is like made in like a stamping press, just like every other part of a car. So I'm not gonna be able to do that. This is not gonna be like restore back to like OEM. This is gonna be pretty much just like good enough. So I'll get that measured, get a piece cut out, and we'll pick it up from there. This is one of my least favorite tools to use. I hate these electric grinders. It's like all or nothing. But I got the big shield on there. I'm gonna use the big face mask. And I mean, it's not ideal. Electric shears would be way better for this, but I don't have any. I have a grinder. I have a thin cutoff wheel for metal, so it'll be fine. All right, as you can see, I got that piece cut out. I just cleaned up the edges a little bit and then gave it a really quick sand with the DA. So obviously, I mean, this doesn't look like much right now, but I mean, it's the right size, so we kind of got that going for us. Usually what I like to do is start at the bottom and work my way up. So we have this edge here, and I just realized that I didn't cut that straight. So for some reason, I cut it back further. Whatever, minor detail. I like to start from the bottom and work my way up. So I got this step here. I'm gonna put that in. So I'll measure that. It's probably gonna be about an inch. I'm probably not gonna put this little lip in there, just make a little break, and that will be, then we can start forming it to come up like this. And then I want to go up even farther here. I'll end up cutting this out more because it's rotten here. Really rotten there, starting to be rotten there. So I like to cut that all the way out, basically up to like this edge here. And then I'll have to just make a bend out like that, and we can weld that back to there. So, you know, say an inch, I'll measure it from the edge here, mark it all the way along, do a nice straight line, put it in the brake the one way, and then I'll flip it over and I'll put it all the way back into basically the same spot I did, maybe like just 1/8 of an inch over, and then bend it the other way. And that should give us that step that we're looking for. And then we'll have that first thing and then straight out, and then we'll just basically have to measure from that bend there basically out to here. I got it marked all the way along, 1 inch. And also when I'm doing stuff like this, I always use like the manufacturer, if I can, use like the manufacturer cut edge, because it's always perfectly straight, and it kind of should be on this part. Put this in here. And we're not gonna go like a full 90 because we don't really need to. We just gotta put a brake in it here. Maybe a little bit more than that. Now we'll take it back out, and you see we have that edge now. We need the step now. So what we're gonna do is flip it around. Now we'll put it back in the other way. And this part's a little bit tricky because it's really hard to get it in there. You kind of got to jam it in because it wants to keep it like 3/4 of an inch away, but you got to kind of overlap it and force it way up in there. This is pretty much going to stick with my motto of not being perfect, but being good enough. Kind of working with what we got here. This isn't the best brake. It's a really cheap one. I actually paid like $200 for this and the engine hoist, so yeah, that looks terrible. That didn't work at all. Kind of see what we were going for, but it ended up being way too big. I wasn't able to force it in far enough. So I'm gonna have to try and see if I can do it a different way. So the brake didn't really do the greatest job. Kind of got it. Like you can see, it's not terrible, but like it's really not good either. But anyways, now we can kind of get this up here and we can see how much of a gap there's gonna be back there. So we're gonna have to make a piece for in there, which we know about. Now I'm basically gonna mark this point right here, put it in the brake, and then so we'll have a little 1 inch piece, and then we'll basically just go, I think, straight up from there. Nothing too crazy, but this brake is not really cooperating. I haven't really used it on anything you know, intricate like this with this like tight bend. Basically just like this bend on the floor, which it worked okay for. But this tight stuff, apparently it's not that great. Okay, so now you can see we're kind of close here, pretty close. Gonna have to end up banging this in a little bit because like I said, it doesn't have that like double step. It's just gonna be one bend. And now for this next bend, which you can see a giant run right there, that's kind of distracting. But this bend right here actually is super wide at the front. And then as it goes back, it gradually almost like disappears. So luckily it's still decent on the other side. So I'm gonna take a couple measurements just for like spacing wise, and then kind of mark that out on here as best I can. And we'll make that bend. This one's gonna be kind of tricky because it's not really what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to do like all this crazy stuff, and we're not doing that. So I'm gonna end up hammer dolling this area kind of flat, and that way I can just have a surface to weld to, and then it'll just be basically a straight shot all the way back. I just tacked it on really quick, just to get an idea of how it's going. It's not too bad. You can see here it doesn't quite match up, so I'm gonna have to put a little bit more of a bend in the center, and then I'll basically have to just weld on a little edge on here, which isn't really a big deal. When I measured to make this piece, I completely forgot to like check if I made a straight line, and it wasn't a straight line at all. So I had to recut this further back because there was a giant gap underneath here. Now it's not far enough over so I can wrap it around. So I'll just have to add a little piece on the back, which isn't a huge deal. Then I went inside here and I measured from the other side, you know, roughly where it's supposed to be cut off at, because like I said, it comes off on an angle back here. And then I'll just have to make a little like 90-degree piece, basically to weld the rocker to that inner structure part. And then once all that's done and this is, you know, cut off, then I can go ahead and start making the inner, I don't know, whatever you call this, wheel well, rocker, panel, whatever. Basically the part that's cut off right here and all the way down there. And then that'll weld all together, make it nice and strong, and this will be good. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like the side skirt's gonna cover it, and then you'll never see it. But I just wanna make it somewhat decent. I'm gonna do some final little measurements and probably bend up that little piece inside the rocker that I need. And then I'll go ahead and just break off these little tack welds. I'm gonna prime the inside of the panel, weld on that piece back here. That way I'm not welding underneath the car laying down. I'm gonna measure and mark it and whatever. Then I can weld it easily from the front side, and then we'll be all good. That's what we got to work with. You can see, I mean, I actually can't really see. It's pretty hard to see. Nothing crazy, but we got a plug welded to the main structure, like pretty good. Obviously, like I said, I keep saying this is not, you know, perfect, but this is gonna be good enough. We got the exterior piece fully made and cut, so it's looking pretty good. Got all the holes punched in it, drilled out, and then primed on the inside. So now I'm gonna go ahead and stick it on there, and we're just gonna start welding it on. Should go fairly easily. I think everything's gonna fit pretty good, but I'll get it up there, clamped in place, and maybe tacked, and then we'll see what we got. Tacked on there. You see down here, see now, I'm just gonna have to go back in here and make a little piece for the inside here. You can see the rest of it looks like pretty good. Pretty factory-ish looking, I guess. I got my fancy straight edge here, and everything looks pretty good. So it's good enough to get covered by a side skirt anyway. So I'll finish welding this up now. Well, my GoPro cut out, but I did get it fully welded. And also, if you notice, this like line looks absolutely terrible. I just needed it to be like a little bit rounder, and I couldn't really put it in the brake because I had this already bent out and this bent way under, so I really had no way of doing it, so I just kind of had to like pound it out. So it doesn't really matter. You'll never see it. It's gonna be covered by the side skirt, and I've probably already spent too much time on this considering how much of it you actually see. Just had the inner part there left to do, but yeah, it's not a huge deal. And that'll be done. My flex hoses should be here this week. That'll be cool. Then that way I can finish the whole, basically, inside of the car. Reroute the brake lines in the rear. I want to paint this whole rear section of the interior, just like spray bomb, flat black, just so it doesn't look, I don't know, crappy and blue, I guess. But anyways, I'm just gonna end the video there. I want to make kind of like a shorter video this week because we didn't get a ton of stuff done, but like, that's a pretty big piece of the metalwork that's left on this car. So I think honestly what I'm gonna do is just do that corner that I basically just showed you and leave the rest of it for now until I go to actually like paint the car. And even then it doesn't matter because it's all covered by the side skirts. I can do it basically whenever and it wouldn't make a difference, but the rest of it is still at least pretty solid. That corner was just like completely gone, so I had to do something about it. But yeah, drifting stuff is happening like fairly soon coming up, so I want to tackle the other things like massive manifold leak, there's power steering leak, bunch of other stuff maintenance wise that I want to do, and I want to get all that done obviously before like it comes time to actually, you know, trailer this car hours and hours away to just be disappointed. So I want to get all that done, and that's going to be probably in the next video or a couple of videos. I'm not too sure how it's going to work out, but hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I appreciate you guys watching the stuff and subscribing, liking, all that stuff. Yeah, that's going to do it for this one. I'll see you in the next one.